I'm in an
We're
aquarium.
live.
Hello, this is Candid Frank from Newsflash. Welcome to the Spanglish Sports World Network on Zingo TV Channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are, of course, absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Newsflash, joining me is Aaron William Freeland. Hello, Aaron.
Hello, Frank. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you, Aaron, for being here. I'm feeling great. How are you feeling?
It's still a little chilly, but other than that, doing well. Thank you for having me.
Well, New York got our snow. We've had 3 sunny days in a row here, so I'm knocking on wood that continues. And that's me knocking on the desk, calling the dogs. Now the dogs are freaking out. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so let's move on with the program. And of course, let's start with COVID-19. Remind everyone to wear masks. We seem to be in more an agreement of that. Uh, Vaccines require patience. I know we agree on that. And now, if you want, talk about Canada and the new vaccine that the Prime Minister is putting forward.
Most definitely. There was actually a very interesting press conference yesterday. The Novavax COVID-19 vaccine, which has shown to be 89% effective in the UK during a phase 3 trial, has also been shown to provide protection against the B117 variant, which was the UK one that made it more transmissible, as well as the B1351 variant, which was the other one that was found in South Africa. So that is good news. Prime Minister Trudeau has also announced that Precision Nanosystems and Novavax are on track to manufacture COVID-19 in Canada, indicating that there was a memorandum of understanding that was signed with Novavax yesterday to produce the vaccines at the new NRC Royalmount facility in Montreal. The federal government also had recently invested $126 million towards this facility. So that's a good first step towards us getting more of the vaccines that we need.
I don't know whether it's Ontario. Well, it is. Ontario's getting worse and passing Quebec as far as the number one victim of the tragic, situation that is the COVID-19 virus. Here in Ontario, we're lagging behind the rest of the provinces right now. Our numbers are a little too high. Do you see that changing?
I mean, there was some hope earlier today with the numbers that were released, but Christine Elliott later confirmed that they didn't include numbers from Toronto, which made things measurably worse. The province is, of course, still forging ahead and using these lower numbers as a reason to justify reopening schools. You're going to see regions outside of Peel, Toronto, and Windsor opening up on Monday, February 8th. Followed by Peel, Halton, and Toronto opening up on February 16th. So kids will be going back to in-school classes at that point. This goes back to what we tried to touch on Monday about safe working conditions for the teachers. And I'm still not sure 100% sure how they're going to do it, but we'll have to muddle through as best we can. It's not our hands on the wheel here, Frank. So,
well, it's a political schmozzle, right? I mean, if I'd like to save some of this conversation for the debate. We'll be having a debate about sports and how important and how integrated it should be in society at this point and at this time. But what I will say is this: is the biggest problem we're having right now is this idea that we can't move forward in life unless we can have 100%, guarantee that we're not going to get COVID. We're expecting far too much, it seems. And this is what concerns me across the board. Now, I'm not just talking about any specific area. At the point, well, anyway, we'll get into that later. Let's talk about in general, generally speaking, COVID-19 right now is not getting in the way. I'm surprising you with this, just on a COVID-19 perspective, and we'll talk later about some other sports, but the Olympics as well thinks that they can do their thing. which fits in line with our debate that we'll have later about sports. And they've decided that they're going to give it a go. Now, I know how you feel about it, but generally speaking, do you think the Olympics can create the bubble atmosphere? I think they might have a few more athletes than some of the, pro leagues had.
That is certainly one of the concerns. I mean, you're going to be congregating a large number of people into a very small Olympic village. I know that in the past they've done other things for athletes, such as providing birth control and all that sort of fun stuff. This is
Bicycles,
obviously, yeah, but this is obviously a slightly different situation. Um,
way different.
and ideally, by the time we get to the Olympics in the summer or even the winter next year, hopefully everybody will be vaccinated to the point where we can actually do this. If Tokyo's still planning on going ahead with the 2021 games, I'm puzzled by that decision, to be honest with you.
Allow me also to inject this little comment. The goal is not just to be vaccinated. Being vaccinated, 100, like expecting 100% of the people on this planet to be vaccinated, is an expectation that's not. And please don't take this the wrong way. Other than what I'm saying, it's not necessary. What is necessary is herd immunity being brought on by. They're not sure what the percentage of people who get the vaccine are necessary to create herd immunity, which basically says that a large enough proportion of the people in the world or in your community, I'll break it down to that too, in your community are vaccinated. And what happens is basically the virus is ignored and pushed away by so many people that it can't find its way around. That whenever it happens in isolation. That's the whole point. And then it has nowhere to feed. Now, does it disappear? I don't know. I was watching a TV show yesterday with a couple of virologists, and what they were talking about when it came to COVID was that now they're coming around to the idea that it was produced artificially, and it escaped artificially. And the primary concern, and not to be not to give people major concern, the problem is it isn't a natural virus, therefore it can't be dealt with naturally, which is why you have to use some of these extraordinarily brand new ways of creating vaccines. So what I hope for is that enough people get vaccinated as soon as possible so we create that thing called herd immunity, not the kind that says that we all get it and then we all become safe because we all had it and whatever, right? So
But it's when
that I
enough
just
people
thought I'd
get
leave that.
vaccinated that the virus can't spread anymore. That's the
They're saying that what the experts are saying, not what I'm saying. And I'm sorry, we don't have an expert on call. It's not 100%. Far less than 100% is necessary. Is a necessity that can be achieved for herd immunity. Herd humanity. Yeah, okay. I mean, sound like Trump now. All right. We leave COVID at this point. Now, there's another virus that's being, I guess, touted, and it's the mutual fund virus. So the stock market, Wall Street. There's a virus going around that now all of a sudden, some ordinary folks have gotten involved with in a high-profile way, where the big boys are, let's just say, changing the rules as we go along because the system isn't working for them. Tell me your opinion on that whole situation. And that, of course, is with GameStop that we're talking about.
I think the situation is hilarious and it's a shot of fresh air. Everybody realizes the stock market doesn't measure the true health of the economy. It just measures how well a certain group of companies are doing. Now, those obviously that can be manipulated in different ways. Various hedge fund managers have actually been recorded saying, "Oh yeah, for breakfast I'll bankrupt this company and I'll do this." And why? Because it feels awesome to do it. Well, now you have GameStop got bumped, AMC got bumped up, and it appears silver was next for the Redditors at reddit.com/r/stock market bets. That was another thing that I was interested in seeing where that would go. So far, nothing major. But there's additional consequences to this as well. There were actually some hedge funds that were trying to push for social media to restrict conversation about stocks and about trading, which to me is just ludicrous. But it's it's an indication of how much the big boys don't like it when the youngins start taking their lunch money. So,
Well, it comes down to manipulation, right?
of
It's
course.
all about manipulation, right? And whether you're manipulating people, you're manipulating the stocks. If you manipulate people, if you manipulate the stocks, you're manipulating the stocks. So it all comes down to how do the stocks get sold? How do they get purchased? And most importantly, how is the value determined? And who, if anyone, is determining it? Because if someone's determining it, then the stock market isn't a free and fair election. I mean, stock market.
Now, the whole concept of free market doesn't mean a market free of regulations. It means a market free
No.
of outside controls and influences. That's
Well,
that's a big
yeah,
confusion and
sure.
distinction that people don't make, right?
Just like in life, it's freedom doesn't mean you have the freedom to break the law. Freedom does not mean that you can infringe on other people's freedoms and or rights. Freedom is about figuring out a way that is mutually respectful among everyone, that gives everyone an equal opportunity to be successful and in general in life to succeed. That's what freedom is all about. Freedom means that nobody is held back, nobody is held down, nobody is treated in a way that doesn't afford them the same ability and opportunity to progress or to rise up as everyone else. The same is true that favoritism shouldn't be. And this
Hmm.
is where the it all comes up, right? Because you get Robin Hood that basically helps manipulate stocks so that their friends, while they have customers, while their friends are able to make more money or buy stock cheaply. In other words, talk a stock down because they do that too. They talk
Hmm.
them up, they talk them down. They're not supposed to be doing either, right? They're only supposed to be commenting on the reality of the stock as it sits, not trying to create a projected price. But anyway, next, another one that's this one's big in Canada. And who loves Rogers? I mean, who really loves Rogers? I think we can put 95% of the population on that. We don't like Rogers. And you can insert Bell, you can insert every other cellular company, you can insert every other media company. Nobody's happy with them. Well, it turns out some people who were unhappy with Rogers are going to have an opportunity to maybe get reimbursed because, be my guest, my friend.
In the Quebec Superior Court, actually, December 5th, 2014. So we're going back 6 years now. Actually said that Rogers Communications had to reimburse former customers for early cancellation fees. Now, these are for people who terminated their contracts between February 2008 and June 2013. Really, not much more here other than check your old phone bills, see if you canceled anything and paid any cancellation fees, and you could be reimbursed anywhere between $45 to $330.
This is the most recent situation that hit Rogers compared to, if you remember, folks, back in the day, Aaron, you're probably just a puppy, negative billing, where they would, that was one of the ones that they had to get stopped, where they took advantage of people's ignorance when you're told you get a phone call, I'm going to give you this for free. Oh, that's great. Now in 30 days or 90 days, it's going to start, we're going to start charging you.
Hmm.
Well, that meant that you had to remember that happened. You had to, you had to actively say, no, I don't want it. And if you can't get a hold of them, then you're going to be stuck paying for it. So it was decided starting in BC to make this, you can't do that, which is right. If they're going to give you something for free, it should be for free. And if it stops being for free, you should be notified. You should, it really, as much as we like to blame people and we seem to put people in bubbles. This is one bubble I think we deserve to be in. And
Oh
and
yeah.
this one that you just talked about is just a slap in the hand to say, guess what? You're not doing this stuff anymore. So it's as much as it is about those 3 little years. Was it 3 years? I think you
5 years, February
5 years. My
2008 to
apologies.
June 2013. Yep.
Okay, it's less about those 5 years, more about the rest moving forward. You don't do that kind of stuff because now you'll pay for it. So that's just a message being sent, a shot over the bow, and good for the government for doing something like that. It's actually a good thing that they do that. We might end up having a debate on this one, soon. This one
We
here
may
is
have
the
to do an
Proud
all
Boys.
debate show at this rate, Frank.
The next one is the one that we may have a debate in. That's the Proud Boys being determined as a terrorist group. Tell us a little more about that in Canada.
Yep. They were actually I've been looking at organizations for the past little while, and they actually announced today that the Proud Boys were going to be a group formed by a former rebel contributor, Gavin McInnes, is expected to be formally added to Canada's terrorist entity list later today. So that's actually a bit of a relief. Finally, people will them. There were actually, I think, 14 groups that were added. They were one of the 14.
So that's a blanket statement, literally,
Yeah,
that they're just put
saying
on, and that's it. They've crossed a line that the government feels that they've crossed, and they're not going to be allowed to cross it anymore.
correct.
Okay. The next item business is Jeff Bezos. This is a really brilliant man. Up until just a short time ago, he was the richest man in the world. He is now the second most richest. So I guess that's why he's stepping back from being the big boss at the company. He's still the he's still the grand poobah. He's just not the guy in charge of everything. He's talked about things like he wants to look into other things and he wants to lead, and mostly the cloud stuff that they've got going, that is a big deal for them, that really works, that gets them a lot of money. He's going to be looking at new projects and also space. Tell us a bit more about Bezos.
Well, as you know, he also actually recently suffered a hit to his wealth because he and his wife separated. His ex-wife has actually been donating the majority of the $60 billion that she received in the settlement to humanitarian causes. So that's that's an interesting side shoot. Elizabeth Warren also recently became head chair of the finance committee in the States.
Yikes.
People were wondering if that was connected with Bezos stepping down. It's a nice little conspiracy theory, but it's just a little spice to the rumor.
Well, it's not just about a change in thinking, it's a change in the voice as well.
Mhm.
So, sometimes a voice change can give you a restart that I guess Jeff Bezos and company literally feel is something that they need. And, he is in his late 50s. He's been at this for 30 years. He's been making tons of money. And so, and in his wife's case, she made a ton of money too. And really, Aaron, if I have a bank account with $5 or $10 million, I think I'm fine.
Oh yeah, nobody needs
Now,
that much money.
well, you do if you want to have 3 or 4 airplanes, an ocean liner, and a few other things, own an island and all that kind of stuff. I get it. There's always more. There's always more that you're willing to have, and there's more that you can do. Okay, let's move on to entertainment. And are you a big fan of the Justice League?
I enjoyed it. I can't see myself enjoying 4 hours worth of it, but that's apparently the new Snyder cut that's coming to HBO Max on the 18th of March this year. It's going to be R-rated. 4 hours long, so it adds an extra hour and a half's worth of stuff to the 2017 movie. I'm not sure it's necessary, but the fans seem to want it. So
I throw my hat in the air. Mary Tyler Moore, the Mary Tyler Moore show that I grew up on. Tell us a little bit about the sad ending for 85-year-old Alan Burns.
Alan Burns actually passed away on Saturday. The news wasn't actually released until yesterday afternoon. So we'd like to pass on our condolences to the Burns family, to all their friends in show business. Ed Asner in particular was very eloquent about praising him. Sorry to have seen him go.
Fred VanVleet drops 54 points to set a new Toronto Raptors franchise. And not only is it a Toronto Raptors franchise, it's a league-wide franchise, a league-wide record for scoring by an undrafted player. So that makes it a big deal. Maybe a future debate. We talked about that off. Got to find these excuses to have these debates. Whether they should trade him or not. Your view on that? I'm not on the debate, but on Fred VanVleet's.
I think it's fantastic. Fred is finally rounding into his own, and people are finally realizing the basketball asset that Toronto has here. Speaking of assets, Speaking of assets, the Jays actually just picked up Francisco Liriano. He was pitching with the Jays from 2016 to 17. He's back in a minor league deal. He originally was traded to bring Teoscar Hernandez and Nori Aoki back to bring
That's right.
them to Toronto. So that's fantastic there. So
A couple of things we're going to keep our pulse on, and that is the National Lacrosse League canceling their shortened season. The NWHL has canceled their season. Our last show, we were talking about how many great things were going on. The New Jersey Devils have 14 players with COVID-19. There's a subject we're going to be able to talk about. And then Felix Auger-Aliassime, he is at the Australian Open, and Canada's faring pretty well.
yeah, we're doing all right. He'll be going on to the third round where he's actually going to be playing Igor Gerasimov of Belarus. So he's 2-0 against Gerasimov, so I have high hopes for that. Unfortunately, all the matches for Thursday were canceled because of COVID concerns, so we may not see the rest of that tournament go off.
Yeah,
And
no
lastly,
kidding.
congratulations to Wayne Cashman. Today is the 37th anniversary of his 1,000th game played for the Boston Bruins way back in 1983.
Says the Bruin fan.
Hey, yeah, you know, I got a lot of toes in a lot of different pools.
There you go. All right, let's have our little debate. And
Sure.
as a society, do we or do we not deserve professional major sports entertainment live, fans in the stands, and players on the field of play? Aaron is taking the no position. I'm taking the yes position. I'll be a gentleman and let you go first.
Well, thank you, Frank. I appreciate that. Sean Doolittle of the Washington Nationals this summer compared sports as being the reward for having a functioning society. This means people that take their responsibilities not only to themselves, but also to the body politic and the body society in general seriously enough that they would be willing to make some sacrifices. However, based on the results that we've seen for COVID and the pandemic and the recent escalation in numbers, recent cancellations of 1, 2, potentially more leagues going on right now, we are not a functioning society. Therefore, I don't feel that we deserve sports as a reward. I understand it brings normalcy and helps the psyche, but do we really? Frank?
I think so. I think sports are very important. They help the soul, they help the mind for many people. You know, the thing that bothers me more than anything is we're back into this business of helicopter parenting, you know, putting people in bubbles all over the place. I believe that sports, if and I have to say, not at any cost, not at any cost. There have to be protocols. There has to be safety. And when the safety isn't working, you get what happened with the NLL, you get what happened with the NWHL, and of course you get what happened with the New Jersey Devils. And so far, the major sports have not suffered deeply. We're almost through an NFL season with the Super Bowl coming up this Sunday. There were situations, there were times when games were canceled, but it all ended up working out. Hockey, basketball handled it well. It's just a little tougher outside the bubble. Aaron, I give you the last few seconds.
Well, I do want to thank you for that, Frank. And again, it's a question of not only making sure that we do it, but that we have the supports to do it. I understand that certain sacrifices have to be made, but
And you're
the
talking about
government,
before you start. You're saying before you
exactly,
start. That's that,
exactly.
and I'm not disagreeing with that. And I think the bar is where you and I will disagree. I think, and that's where most people will disagree. Some people have the bar at a certain height. Some have it at a higher height. Some have it at a lower height. At the end of the day, the leagues make a decision, and then they have to concern themselves with public perception. And safety is always our first accommodation. That is always the priority. Well, this is our second show. I really enjoyed this one. We had a great time. I really appreciate you being here. And of course, that means it's time to say goodbye. Of course, you've been watching Spanglish Sports World. I'm Candid Frank. He's download the Spanglish World app.